Great card. We got UFC 298. So really pumped for this one. We got a hell of a main event and a lot of good fights throughout the card. And recently we haven't been getting the highest quality cards, so this is definitely a treat. And hit the like button, man. Put a subscribe if you're not subscribed. Put some comments down below. Let's try to blow this video up. Let's try to get as many likes as possible. And for all your betting needs, go to patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru. We've been killing it this year, man, with bets. We've been profitable every week so far in 2024. We're going to be looking to keep that going. So go to patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru. Support the channel. Become part of the community and make your money betting. And outside of that, man, let's get in this first fight of the night here. Andrea Lee versus Miranda Maverick. And Lee is the underdog here. She's coming off 3 losses in a row. She's obviously the older veteran. And then we got Miranda Maverick, who has underwhelmed a little bit, you could argue, in her UFC tenure. She hasn't necessarily produced at the level that I think people expected her to. She's had some losses mixed in. But primarily she's been winning and she's improving and looking good. So I think that Maverick still has some spark in her career left, especially if she keeps getting better. She's still young. And as far as these two girls match up, Andrea Lee, historically, she's had some trouble fighting these wrestling type of girls. Like, she got submitted back in the day by Sarah DeLelio or someone like that, I believe that's her name, who's a pretty good grappler. And then Roxanne beat her multiple times, like, within a lot of time span in her career. So it showed, like, 5-6 years of progression. Andrea Lee still wasn't able to turn that corner to beat someone like Roxanne. And so I don't really see her really progressing that much. Like, she has gotten better in her more recent fights, but I think stylistically she's been getting good matchups, even though they've been against higher profile names. They haven't been girls that really have been trying to take her down too often. And when they did, they've been pretty successful taking her down. It's not like her takedown defense has improved leaps and bounds, but Lee, she's obviously going to have the better striking, and she should look to mix in the takedowns too, because Maverick, if you look at her career, what she struggled with is girls with effective pressure and good wrestling. So if they could pressure Maverick and take her down, she doesn't have great get-ups, and she's just not very good off bottom. So you can control her, and you can kind of beat her up. We saw Erin Blanchfield do it. We saw Jasmine Judavicius do it. But when you don't have that forward pressure game, Miranda's really good because she has great ability to move in and out. She's pretty athletic. She can feint the level changes, then come with the overhands. And she has great wrestling, and then she has good wrestling, and then her top pressure is really good. She has great top pressure, good back take. She's aggressive with her ability to finish when she gets it to the ground. I think that a submission is in the cards here potentially for Miranda Maverick. I could see that potentially materializing for her here, especially because I think cardio is a pretty significant advantage. Andrea Lee slows down. Miranda Maverick tends to get better as the fights go on. I know a lot of people are going with Andrea Lee as the underdog, and the line is kind of shortening up a little bit. But I like Maverick here. I just don't think Andrea Lee is going to have that effective pressure for 3 rounds. Even if she has it early, I think she's going to get tired. Maverick will be able to kind of turn the fight a little bit. And I feel like Maverick will be able to hit the takedowns when she does go for them. And ultimately, I think Maverick's going to kind of cook Andrea Lee, get her tired, and I think she could get a late round submission or win via decision. So give me Miranda Maverick here, the younger girl, the prospect to get the victory. Fairly low-level fight between Val Woodburn and Oban Elliott. Val Woodburn, this is going to be his second UFC fight. First UFC fight was really quick, really short. Came in as kind of fodder for Bo Nickel, and that's how it went down. He got knocked out in less than a minute. And now he's going to have to come in here and prove that he's UFC level after kind of just being brought in as an opponent to lose in his first UFC fight. And Oban Elliott, the Welsh gangster, he has had some momentum recently. He's been winning. He got that win on the Contender Series to get into the UFC. It wasn't without adversity, though. I mean, the guy took a lot of damage to ultimately get that victory, but he did get the job done. And you look at how these guys match up, I mean, I just wasn't impressed with Val Woodburn at all. I just don't see the guy as UFC level. He's 30 years old, so unless he somehow, gotten a lot better during this time off. I just don't think he's there. He doesn't have a lot of experience. He hasn't fought many guys. If you look at Oban Elliott, he's fought the much better competition overall. But Woodburn, spark plug type of guy, short, stout. He likes to use that straight right hand or the overhand right, and then he'll push you against the cage and kind of cage wrestle you, but was fairly unimpressed with his wrestling. I feel like he was getting turned and losing position against these really old bums and these lower level guys. Couldn't finish certain guys that were not really that high level, that had been knocked out quite a few times. I feel like his striking is really just feigning a level change, big overhand, big right cross. He doesn't really bring a lot of variety. He doesn't bring a lot of skill. And with Elliott, he's bad defensively, but he's a lot more skillful on the feet. He at least has some semblance of a jab, feints. He has the ability to mix in the takedowns, which I think is going to be something that he does do in this fight. I don't think that Woodburn's wrestling is necessarily going to be able to hold up here. It's another thing that I don't like about Woodburn is he's coming down to 170. I feel like the guy's a big ball of muscle. Is he going to be able to have the cardio at 170? Is he going to have the ability to even make weight? That's something that I'm a little bit worried about, and something I think helps Oban Elliott, because Elliott's a tough guy. He could take damage early, keep coming. He has great cardio. He's the younger guy who is going to be theoretically improving more. So I just feel like unless Elliott just gets clipped and Woodburn does have that puncher's chance, then he's going to run away with the victory here. I think he could win on the ground via KO TKO, or I think he could clip him with a 1-2 or a clean strike when Woodburn's just being a little wild and gets out of position and hurt him that way. So Oban Elliott for me is going to be the prediction, and I think he can get the job done here inside the distance.
All right, in this matchup here, we got Josh Quinlan taking on Danny Barlow. Quinlan, he's coming off the first loss of his career, where he had his second UFC fight. He fought Trey Waters and just had a bad night. He couldn't figure out how to close the distance on the longer guy and just kind of got beat up for 3 rounds. Before that, he had been undefeated with some highlight reel knockouts, so he was a pretty big prospect, and he was actually a big favorite in that fight against Waters, and I bet on Waters, so that was one of the better bets that we had last year. I was pretty confident, and then Waters went in there and dominated the fight. But in this one, he's taken on a guy making his UFC debut off the Contender Series in Danny Barlow. And Danny Barlow is undefeated at 7-0, so he's in the same position that Quinlan was in his last fight, where he still has a 0 on his record. And he got that quick first-round knockout in the Contender Series and had some fights against okay fighters, but both of these guys really haven't fought top-level competition, so this is a good matchup because they're both not super experienced. They don't have a ton of high-level fights, and I think that it should be a good fight for both guys. So you look at how they match up. It's a similar matchup for Quinlan to his last fight, where he's getting a really long, lanky striker, so he's going to have to do a much better job of closing the distance than he did against Trey Waters. We got Barlow with an 80-inch reach, which I believe is going to be the longest reach at 170 in the UFC. And if Barlow wins this fight, it's just going to be off him being sharp. I think if he stays sharp and stays technical, he's going to get the job done. You look at Josh Quinlan, he's kind of an exploder, spark plug type of guy that has some quick knockouts against low-level competition, but I feel like his striking is a little overrated because he doesn't use a lot of feints or fakes to close the distance, is pretty methodical, and really just relies on his athleticism and explosiveness to close the gap when he does go first, and that's why he gets caught a lot coming in against more skilled strikers like we saw with Trey Waters. And all he really has on the outside is leg kicks, which they could be a factor in this fight. Barlow is kind of heavy on his lead leg, but he could switch stances, Barlow, and he checks kicks fairly well. So I think that he'll be able to mitigate a lot of the leg kicks damage that Quinlan potentially could do. And Quinlan mainly likes to counterpunch, so that's why Barlow has to stay sharp and stay long. If Barlow can keep the jab in Quinlan's face, keep that straight left hand, which That's why his nickname is Left-Handed God. I mean, his straight left hand is really nice, really clean. Southpaw with length, so that's always tricky. And if he could just stay long, stay sharp, he has the speed, he has the technicality to keep Quinlan on the end of his punches and potentially really land some big shots and get Quinlan out of there, who's not really defensively sound and makes mistakes. But with Quinlan, what we do have is a super strong guy that comes in great shape. So Barlow has to be able to push for 3 rounds if he can't get Quinlan out of there in the first. I think that's going to be a factor. If Quinlan can make it out of the first and really try to keep pushing the pace and doesn't take too much damage, maybe he could start to wear on Barlow going into the 3rd round. But in terms of wrestling or grappling, I don't really see too much of that in this fight. I think Quinlan is the one that would potentially try to wrestle here, but he doesn't have great wrestling, and Barlow is not going to attempt takedowns or anything like that. If they do go to the ground, I think that Quinlan will probably have a slight advantage. Quinlan looks like he, even when you take him down, because he usually doesn't take people down, or when he drops you, he's good on top. He's heavy and he has good control. He could get the back and get rear naked chokes. And when you take him down, he's hard to control. He's very strong. Like, he could stand up from under guys. And definitely, if he can get on top, potentially he could do damage. But I just don't think he's going to be able to get the takedowns. I don't know if he's going to be able to land clean enough to drop Barlow, who's never been hurt in a fight or really dropped and knocked out or anything like that. So he has a good chin. So I don't know if that's really going to come into play. And Barlow, off of his back, isn't a zero. I watched a few of his fights, and he isn't a great grappler, but he knows what he's doing enough. He stays composed, and he can re-guard and eventually get back up to his feet. So even if Quinlan does take him down, I don't think he's going to instantly finish him or anything like that. And so personally, I just feel like Danny Barlow is going to be able to get the job done. I just don't think he's going to be lazy in there. I think he's going to be sharp, technical. I think Quinlan just doesn't have a lot of avenues to win outside of knocking out Barlow in the first round, or Barlow completely gasses out and gets finished late. And I don't think those two scenarios are that likely. So ultimately, I think Barlow's going to win. And I actually feel like Barlow has a decent chance to get the knockout. I mean, you look at Josh Quinlan's last fight with Trey Waters. He did survive 3 rounds with Waters, but he took a lot of damage. And I personally feel like Barlow is a little bit more of a dynamic and dangerous striker than Trey Waters in terms of being able to land a one-shot knockout. So I don't necessarily know what the odds are going to come out to on that, but that's potentially a bet that I would look at, Danny Barlow by KO. And for the official pick, I'm going to say Barlow wins via 2nd-round knockout.
Being short and sweet, I think both these guys are knockout artists. They like to be really aggressive, get in the pocket, and exchange, and one person's going to find another person's chin first and go down. So MingYang Zhang and Brendson Ribeiro, they both kind of have weird resumes where haven't beaten a lot of great guys, but they have experience. So UFC's kind of trying to test them out, see what level they're at, and then maybe feed them to the wolves after that. But they're entertaining style-wise. They like to go out there and really throw for the fences. MingYang Zhang is good in the pocket, good straight punches, great speed, good power, but bad defensively. And Ribeiro is like a long, lanky guy that if you can get inside on him, you can land. I don't really think his chin is the best, but he's very dangerous closing the distance on him because he can land pull counters, he can land counter hooks, he can land knees, he can land strikes coming as you come in and turn you off with one punch. So it's just going to be Zhang pressuring forward, being really aggressive, and Ribeiro's either going to catch him coming in, catch him with the left hook in the pocket, or Zhang is going to knock him out with punches if he catches him first. So to me, it's a pretty 50-50 fight. Zhang hasn't fought in a while, but he's been training at Extreme Couture. He's a young guy, so I think that that's not anything to be too worried about. But I'm going to go with Ribeiro. I think Ribeiro is a little bit more maybe defensively sound, maybe a little bit more technical, and I think the length and is going to help him. I think he's going to be able to find Zhang and knock him out with the left hook counter. And this next fight, we have Rinya Nakamura, who's probably the best prospect coming out of Japan right now, taking on Carlos Vera. who they're bringing in after not winning the Contender Series and losing in his first fight. He had a decent fight, though. He had a back-and-forth fight with Brad Katona, but this is cannon fodder for Rinya Nakamura personally. I mean, you look at Carlos Vera, he's a Taekwondo karate guy that likes to move around on the outside, throw a lot of kicks, and time you with some slick counter-punching ability. But he's never had great wrestling. He has okay grappling, like he has a good guillotine. It seems like he could stay fairly safe off his back. But he can be taken out fairly easily. You see him going for a lot of leg locks as well. But in this fight, it's like if you can't defend the takedowns of Nakamura, it's going to be tough. I don't see him being able to use those leg locks or submission game off his back to create scrambles and sweep or submit Nakamura. I think he's going to have too good a base and too good a grappling knowledge for that to happen. And another thing is he's 36 years old, so he's on the older side, whereas Rinya is 28. He's only getting better. Rinya is a former Japan national team wrestler, very explosive guy. He could shoot it on the legs. He can get takedowns on the upper body. He has power in his hands. His striking is still a work in progress, but he has the ability to knock you out with one punch. And on top, he likes to kind of attack the arms, go for not the greatest submissions at this point. I don't think he has a super great ability to finish via submission on the ground unless you kind of just quit because he's overwhelming you. But that's, to me, the bigger question in this fight. Is it going to go over 1.5 rounds? Is it going to go to decision? Because that's the value to me on this fight. I think this fight could go over. We saw Rinya in his last fight with Fernando Garcia go all 3 rounds. So could be a sneaky play to have Rinya by decision or the fight goes to decision or something like that. But either way, I think Rinya Nakamura is going to get the win here and look very dominant. On the card, we got the heavyweights. We got Marcos Rogerio de Lima taking on Justin Tafa. Big step down in competition from de Lima, who was looking to move into that top 10 if he would have gotten a win over Derek Lewis, but that flying knee sent him tumbling down, and now he's taking on kind of a mid to low tier heavyweight that's on the up and up in Justin Tafa, and they're seeing if Justin Tafa can kind of get the jump on the veteran de Lima here and move into the top 15, or if de Lima can defend his spot and then maybe get another opportunity to move up in the rankings. But de Lima coming off a really quick loss, obviously, to Derek Lewis, whereas Justin Tafa, quick knockout win over Austin Lane. So just in those names, you see the contrast in the level of competition. I mean, Justin Tafa, he's been fighting more of the Austin Lanes of the world, the lower level half of the heavyweight division, whereas de Lima, he hasn't necessarily fought the elite of the elite, but he's fought some guys in the top 15. He's definitely fought much higher level opponents overall. And stylistically, when you look at both of these guys, Tafa, he has that southpaw dynamic, which de Lima struggled with a little bit in a few fights. You saw the Blagoy-Ivanov fight. Ivanov was landing a lot of straight lefts on de Lima. But I think that de Lima in this fight, if he's smart, he should try to grapple and mix in the wrestling. And he always does that when he's fighting some of these guys that are not necessarily the best wrestlers. Like, if he stays at range with Tafa and lets Tafa snipe him with the left hand, he could get tired and he could end up getting sloppy and getting countered and knocked out. But if de Lima uses his leg kicks, uses his big power hooks to back up Tafa and then clinch him up, hold him against the fence, take him down, I think he'll be effective doing that. I don't think Tafa has the grappling to defend that. And I think he could control him on top. He could stall him out. He could nullify him. De Lima isn't necessarily the greatest finisher on the ground, but he could hold him down, and he's shown that he can win decisions with his grappling-based game plans. So I think that's definitely a path to victory for de Lima. If de Lima just decides to strike with Tafa, I think he makes it much closer to a 50-50 fight. If he mixes in the wrestling, the grappling, mixes in some clinch control, then I think he could win it much easier. So ultimately, I feel like de Lima is just the more experienced fighter. He is the more well-rounded fighter, and experience counts for a lot at heavyweight. I think it counts for more than in other divisions, and I feel like Tafa is going to get that lesson here that He needs to just be a little bit more well-rounded to compete with these guys. I think Lima's going to use his striking to set up the takedown, set up the clinch control, wear out Tafa, get him a little tired, and then just beat him up with the grappling, hold him down. And I think the overs on this fight are something you could target. I think that De Lima by decision is potentially a sneaky bet. But I'm going to go with Marcos Rogerio De Lima to get the victory here. And closing out the prelims, we got Amanda Lemos taking on Mackenzie Dern. We got two top 10 115ers getting in there, and they're going to throw down in a clash of styles here with Amanda Lemos. Well, both these girls have gotten a lot more, maybe not even, I think Lemos always had those skills. Mackenzie Dern rounded out her skills, but definitely more of a grappler with Dern that wants to bring this fight to the ground. And Lemos in this matchup is definitely going to want to keep it on the feet and try to snipe. And the initial line I thought was crazy. I wish I would have seen the initial line because Dern was a huge underdog and now it's almost a pick 'em. So I think it's more appropriately lined at this point. But I feel like a lot of people are disrespecting Mackenzie Dern a little bit because of that last performance. I mean, Jessica Andrade was able to eat her shots and return with counters and knock her out, but Lemos has that capability. It's just, I don't think Lemos is as durable and as willing to sit in the pocket and eat punches and return punches as Jessica Andrade was, and I think Mackenzie Dern's striking is a little underrated at this point. I still think people think she has no striking, but she has improved her speed. She has good speed. She does a good job moving around. She'll come in with the jab too. She throws longer combinations. She's gotten better at that. So she'll throw like 4-punch combinations. She'll mix in nice knees. And she's powerful. So she can land clean shots. She really overwhelmed and beat up Angela Hill really bad. And Jessica Andrade was just able to eat Mackenzie Dern's punches, stay in the pocket, and counter with her own. And after Mackenzie Dern lands, she kind of is out of position a little bit at certain times. And that's where you can catch her and you can drop her, you can hurt her. And Lemos is going to be trying to pull counter, get out of the way, and then slip and rip and land one of her clean punches where if she lands right on the chin, Lemos also has that power to turn the lights out with one punch. So that's where I think a lot of people are getting confidence in Lemos. But I think that Dern is going to be able to match this speed. I think she's going to be able to land a lot of shots herself. And Lemos is going to have to time that one punch, whereas Dern is going to be throwing a lot more volume, in my opinion. So unless Lemos gets the finish via KO, I think Dern is likely going to come away the victor in this fight. And that's without talking about the other advantages I think Dern has in terms of if it goes to the ground, Dern obviously has a big advantage. And I think she has an advantage in the cardio. She's more youthful. She's younger. So I think that's also a factor here. Lemos, she has good takedown defense. Good defensive grappler, but no real get-ups. I mean, her guillotine is dangerous, but she's not going to submit someone like Mackenzie Dern. And we've seen Lemos get really tired when you push the grappling and wrestling pace on her. Her last fight with Weili Zhang, she showed heart, but the girl got absolutely dominated. I mean, it was like the third round. I remember seeing a graphic. It was like 129 strikes to 4 or something in the third round. So, like, Lemos really had no effective offense versus Weili Zhang. She's getting older. I think that the one thing I don't like for Dern in this fight is she's coming back so quickly after that last fight with Andrade, like 3 months after that knockout loss. So that, to me, is a little scary. But factoring everything in, I'm going to lean towards Mackenzie Dern to take the decision here. I think that if she doesn't get finished, she's going to do more and be able to get the win. I think she's going to have the higher output. And I think both these girls have the opportunity to hurt each other on the feet. I don't think it's necessarily one-way traffic in terms of someone that can get dropped or someone that can get hurt standing up. So give me Mackenzie Dern. I'll pick her via decision, but I think there's also a decent likelihood that this fight ends inside the distance. But either way, I'm going to lean with Mackenzie Dern. The first fight on the main card, we got Anthony Hernandez taking on Roman Kopylov. Complete clash of styles here. It's going to be a really, really brilliant fight. Anthony Hernandez, he's been breaking guys down. He's been cooking them with his wrestling. Whereas Roman Kopylov, he's been breaking guys down with the striking recently. So definitely going to be entertaining to see who implements their game plan in this fight. But personally, I'm going to be rolling with Fluffy Hernandez. I just think cardio is king sometimes. And Kopylov, I don't trust his cardio. I think he slows down. He's been able to get these wins recently, but he hasn't fought many wrestlers. When he fought Albert Duraev, he stuffed a lot of takedowns, but he still got tired. and he still ended up getting beat up on the ground for portions of that fight, ended up losing that fight, got submitted. So I feel like Anthony Hernandez is going to be able to take the damage early that he does potentially take and then win the fight late. One thing I'm a little bit worried about is the body attacks from Kopylov, the body punches, the body kicks. We've seen that be an issue for Anthony Hernandez in the past. So he needs to have his body defense on point, not let any of those kicks get in. Or if he does, he has to bite down on the mouthpiece and really take those shots a lot better than we've seen him take it in the past. And if he can, I think that he could start to really wear on Kopylov, get him tired, and end up getting the victory. So Kopylov, I just think he's not going to have the cardio or the wrestling to deal with Hernandez's onslaught. Hernandez, I wish he was a little bit more defensively responsible, but I think he has the ability to potentially threaten a lot of the guys in the division just with his cardio, his wrestling, and his pace. I think he has an element of a Merab Dvalishvili even at a higher weight class. So Hernandez, for me, is going to be the prediction, and I think he'll win in the later round, second or third, via KO, TKO, or submission.
Epic matchup. We got Merab Dvalishvili. He's taking on Henry Cejudo. And what can you say about this fight? I mean, you got a guy that's on one of the longest and most impressive winning streaks in the history of the bantamweight division, taking on a former bantamweight champion, former flyweight champion, former Olympic gold medalist. So it's the creme de la creme. It's two of the best fighters in the world matching up against each other in arguably the premier division in MMA, 135 pounds. And I think it's a great stylistic matchup. I think a lot of people are counting out Henry Cejudo just because of the outside noise and the optics of the fight, which makes sense. I mean, you look at all that definitely leans on Merab. Merab's going to be, just if you think about in the cage, he's going to be the guy that has more momentum right now. He's on a win streak. Henry came back, took that controversial loss to Aljamain Sterling. Merab Dvalishvili has been more active. He's going to be younger. He's going to have a little bit of a size advantage. So all those things are definitely pro Merab. And another thing about Merab is he has, right now everything gelling, going good. Whereas Henry recently, you just saw that he has gotten new coaches. He's left Eric Albarracin and some other guys that have been in his corner for a long time. So he's trying to mix it up, change things up for this fight to try to get some new juice. And obviously Henry took that time off where he wasn't training. He got a lot bigger. It seemed like he gained some weight, and then he came back. And I actually thought he won that fight with Aljamain Sterling, 48-47. It was a very competitive, close fight, but they didn't give it to him on the judges' scorecards. And hopefully he knocked the rust off, got motivated, and now he's going to come back and go on a second run. But this could be, okay, I lost that fight. I put all my eggs into that basket. Almost got the win, almost got my belt back, and now I'm just going to go get a couple nice paychecks, and then call it a day. So that's kind of the worry and trepidation for me with Cejudo is, where's he at mentally? Is he putting 100% effort into this fight? Is he as confident as he was going into the Sterling fight? I would hope all those things are a yes, and if he fights to his optimum, then I think that it could be a good night for Henry Cejudo. I mean, you look at Merab Dvalishvili, his style is pretty obvious and everyone knows what it is. He goes in there, he's going to be moving around 100 miles an hour. He's very quick and he likes to move around on the outside. Then you'll close the distance with some straight punches. He's improved his defense a little bit. He has an okay jab. He'll throw a lot of spins. But primarily he's wanting to use his striking to time the level change, get you on the ground. And he's not necessarily the best guy at holding opponents down. That's always been kind of a negative on Merab. But it doesn't matter because if you get back up, he'll just go back into his game plan and then take you down again. And he could take you down 40 times in a fight and not get tired. I mean, we've seen he has arguably the best cardio in the UFC. So Merab is going to be looking to, in this fight, I believe, have to strike a lot more. I mean, I don't see him going out here and taking down and controlling or hitting a lot of takedowns on a guy like Henry Cejudo. I would actually be very surprised if he took him down more than like 1-2 times in the entire fight. I mean, Cejudo's takedown defense is elite. I think he's the better wrestler. I think Merab's wrestling is extremely high level, don't get me wrong. Like, he chains things together, he's super explosive, he has a great single leg, but we've seen him when you've seen him fight other wrestlers like Ricky Simone. He got put on his back, he got reversed with the guillotine, got mounted. He got his takedowns reversed late in the third round, held on the ground against Cody Stamann. He got taken down by Cody Stamann a couple of times as well. So if I'm Cejudo, the game plan for me is pretty obvious. I mean, you have to get in Merab's face and you have to pressure him heavily. You can't let him have that room to move around and explode in, explode out, get his game going like that, because that's how he gets momentum rolling downhill. You have to get in his face, use the superior boxing in and out movement that you have, and wrestle Merab too. Try to take him down, hold him down, mix it up. I don't think either guy's going to have a ton of success holding each other down, but if someone does, I think it'll be Henry having the more success actually controlling on top. And he has to be ready to defend the takedowns, which I think he's going to be ready to do. And if he could do all that, I think that he has a great chance to win. It's just, is Henry going to be able to match the output of Dvalishvili, and is he going to come with that forward pressure game plan? Because I feel like in his last fight with Aljamain, he kind of cost himself, because I think if he would have pressured in that fight a little bit more, been more aggressive, been more willing to get in the pocket and exchange and make it more of a high-paced fight, I think he would have been able to win a lot clearer on the judges' scorecards. But maybe it was because of rust, maybe it was because he was feeling something that people couldn't see outside the octagon, but he stayed on the outside a lot, and he used that kind of bladed stance to move around and got hit with some, unnecessary crosses and kicks, and just didn't have that activity level where I think that's kind of how Aljamain stole the fight. But man, I mean, I think the line should be close to like even money line pick'em. So just because of that, I am going to be putting a 1-unit bet here on Henry Cejudo, and I think he's going to get the victory. So give me Henry Cejudo, get the win, get the job done, and I am going to be putting that bet on him.
And up next year, we got a fight that was supposed to go down a couple years ago, got canceled, and now we're finally getting it again with Geoff Neal taking on Ian Machado Garry. And this fight almost needed to happen. I remember a lot of people were really mad that Ian Garry made those faces with Geoff Neal's mugshot on him, and there was a lot of heat going into this fight. But then, obviously, I think Neal had to pull out or something happened. The fight didn't end up going down. And then it looked like maybe it wasn't going to happen because Ian Garry was kind of ascending. But after that whole last debacle with him pulling out of his last fight and everything going on behind the scenes, it kind of slowed his momentum a little bit. And now him and Geoff Neal are finally going to meet up and fight here. And should be a hell of a matchup. I mean, ultimately, I feel like if Ian Garry has his head on straight and he doesn't get clipped with a big shot, it's his fight to lose. Because you look at Geoff Neal historically, he's just struggled with these long guys. Like, he lost to Neil Magny even. But you look more at the striking-based longer guys like Wonderboy. He kind of had Geoff Neal lost a little bit. He couldn't really find the left hand. Kevin Holland back in the day was able to use his length and outstrike Geoff Neal. And I just feel like Ian Garry, if you give him a striking fight against many fighters at 170, I don't think there's that many that could beat him. I mean, I think there's only a select handful or very few. So Geoff Neal, I don't see him being able to implement really a lot of wrestling or grappling in this one. Even if he has some clinch control, I feel like Ian Garry's actually going to probably get the better of the grappling and wrestling exchanges. And I just think he's going to make it difficult for Geoff Neal to find him. He's going to be peppering him. He's going to be controlling distance, range, using that master ability to manipulate distance. And I think he's going to be able to get the job done either via decision or he can land a head kick or something slick and get Geoff Neal out of there. But give me Ian Garry to keep moving up in the division. And I think until he faces a really good wrestler or an extremely high-level striker, he's going to be able to get the job done against the majority of these mid-tier striker guys or people that don't have elite-level grappling. And in the co-main event, just like the last fight, we got another fight that's been in the making for a while now. These guys have been scheduled to fight before, and then Costa pulled out or he never signed the contract. There was some weird things going on the first time they were supposed to fight. And Whittaker, I remember, was kind of upset with Costa because he had to put like a training camp in. He ended up kind of wasting it. So there could be a little bit of bad blood, a little bit of heat going in this fight, a little bit of. I don't think they don't dislike each other, but I think that Whittaker might be thinking that he needs to get something back that Costa took from him here. But man, for me, it's hard to go with Costa here. Like, Costa hasn't fought really a real fight in a long time. Like, Luke Rockhold, to me, it's kind of, you could throw that fight away. Like, I know it was competitive, actually, and, like, him and Rockhold were actually very well matched on the feet, it seemed like, until Luke got tired. But Costa hasn't really fought that often recently. Like, he had that fight with Vittori where he blew weight, and that was even a while back at this point. The last time he actually looked good was like the Yoel fight in 2017. So I just think it's really hard for you to just pick Paulo Costa against a guy like Robert the Reaper Whittaker, who, even though, you know, some people could question his durability, I don't think Costa is someone that's going to find his chin like that. Like, he throws real wide, looping, crazy shots. He has good body kicks, and he can kind of, if he could pressure and land clean on Whittaker, I mean, maybe something could happen, but I don't even think he has that one-shot KO power like that. And then I feel like Whittaker is going to be way better at range. I think he's going to have the speed. I think he's going to be able to use his blitz and his jab like he does against most guys. I think he could even mix in takedowns. I think he could have the cardio edge. It's just Costa has that eraser, like his nickname is, where he could land that one shot and win the fight, especially with Whittaker going up there in age and things like that. But I just find it really difficult to go out there and sort of pick Costa. I think even stylistically, Whittaker has the advantages everywhere, and I think that just everything else, like motivation-wise, is Costa really fighting to get to the title? Like, does he want to fight to get the most money? Does he really want to be in the UFC? Like, all these things, there's too many question marks with Costa for me to pick him against a guy like Whittaker. Even if Whittaker is slowing down or people think he's at the tail end, I still got to give him that respect. And I think Whittaker via decision is the prediction for me, and I think he's going to be able to go in there and probably make it look pretty easy, because I just think that he's going to outclass Costa here at distance. Alexander Volkanovski taking on Ilia Topuria, and this is a much anticipated fight. Ilia Topuria has been talking a lot, and Alexander Volkanovski's the type of guy that when you talk shit to him, he matches that same energy. So he's been bringing that intensity to this fight. It's definitely going to be a really, really high intensity matchup, and I think it's going to be really high level, really fun to watch. Obviously, Volkanovski has been the king at 145 for a long time now. He has defended his belt quite a few times, and I think if he can get past Ilia and maybe one more, he's probably going to be in contention for one of the best UFC champions of all time. But recently, he hasn't had the best success. I mean, he's lost 2 of his last 3 fights. Granted, both of them were to the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world currently, Islam Makhachev, and they were up at 155 pounds, but they were still losses. And one of those losses, he got knocked out, which was the last time he fought. So that's a big factor into this fight, especially with everyone is bringing into question his age, 35, and the whole stat with the record of people 35 under 170 fighting for the title. I don't exactly remember it, but it's like 1 in 30 or something really bad like that. But that's also a factor. But I think it's just the fact that if he was 35 and didn't take these losses and have that damage, I don't think people would really be bringing that up. I think it's more because of his recent performances. But Ilia Topuria, he is undefeated. He's been running through everyone. His last fight, he was able to prove to everyone that he can go 5 rounds at a good pace, absolutely destroy Josh Emmett, and had a great showing to earn this position here to fight for the belt. And he's extremely confident he's going to take the title from Volkanovski, and he feels like he's getting him at the right time, and he's going to turn into a superstar and go on his run. And a lot of people are kind of thinking it's a little bit reminiscent to Conor McGregor and things like that. So Ilia's definitely has that superstar aura, and if he can seal the deal and get the title, I think he can move into becoming one of the bigger stars in the UFC. But how these guys match up, it's Alexander Volkanovski, we all kind of know how he fights. He's an extremely educated guy. He's very well-rounded and switch stances. He likes to primarily stay on the outside, use his kicks to set up his punches. And in this fight, that's going to be paramount because he doesn't want to be in boxing range against Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria is one of the best boxers in the UFC, and I think a lot better boxer than Alexander Volkanovski. Volkanovski, his game plan, in my opinion, for this fight, what he wants to do, he's going to have to try to... Ilia has that low stance, so throw a lot of leg kicks, which Volkanovski does in majority of his fights. He's going to have to snap those leg kicks out there, snap the body kicks out there, try to kind of throw off Ilia's rhythm, use those exits to both sides, kind of get Ilia guessing on which side he's exiting on, and just try to move like a go, switch stances like you always do, and then use your kicks to set up longer combinations, because sometimes Volkanovski will kind of throw only like 1-2 punch combos, and if he does that against Ilia, he's going to get fucked up, because Ilia will just pull back, land counter combinations, and I think he'll be able to land clean on Volkanovski. So Volkanovski's going to have to throw longer combos, back Ilia to the cage when he does go in with the hands, and use his kicks to set up his punches. And then I would try to initiate the grappling, try to initiate clinch exchanges, try to get takedowns, get on top, try to test that gas tank of Topuria even more. But some of the things that I don't like that Volkanovski does in this matchup for him with Ilia, and I think Ilia will capitalize on, is the way Volkanovski likes to kind of... He'll try to use his rear hand, like he'll move it out to like parry your shots or kind of gauge distance or whatever he's trying to do with it. And when you do that, I mean, you're leaving yourself open for body shots, man. And I feel like Ilia could really rip to the body on Volkanovski if he's doing that, if he's trying to kind of use his rear hand to gauge distance. And then another thing, he ducks in a lot. Like he'll duck down when he's coming forward. I feel like Ilia can meet him with uppercuts. He can meet him with knees, with shots up the middle. And we've seen other fighters have success doing that with Volkanovski in the past. And I feel like Ilia has the style to do that very effectively. So those things I feel like Volkanovski has to sharpen up a little bit. I think he can't be playing around with that rear hand. He has to keep it tight to his body. And he can't... throw these short combinations, and he has to be on the outside, setting up his punches with his kicks. He can't let Ilia pressure him into boxing range, and then he needs to probably be able to dominate in the clinch. But with Ilia Topuria, this guy's a beast, man. I mean, he has some of the best boxing in the division. His last fight, he showed really good fight IQ because he fought Josh Emmett, who has that really low stance, who likes to be a heavy forward pressure boxer, and he really beat up his lead leg and used that to set up, you know, all the punches that he landed and a lot of the significant strikes that he did end up landing on Josh Emmett. But Ilia, he's someone that likes to pressure forward, get in the pocket, and in the pocket he's one of the best there. He is really good at rolling with shots, slipping shots, returning. He throws long combinations, really nice uppercut, and then he's a very good counter puncher as well. And Volkanovski likes to counter, so I think Ilia needs to try to use pressure feints to draw out the counter and then kind of counter the counter of Volkanovski. And if he could pull back and land those long combinations with the pullback uppercuts, pullback rear crosses, 2-3s, then he could definitely potentially get Volkanovski out of there, in my opinion. I think he has the chance to knock him out. He has that kind of power. One thing about Ilia that he does do that can get him caught sometimes and Volkanovski has to capitalize on is, it's not really Volkanovski's nature to do this, though, so I think it's going to be difficult for him to really capitalize on this. But what Ilia does sometimes is he'll throw that rear cross or the right hand, and then he likes to follow with those super hard left hooks. And if he does that in this fight, he could potentially get countered, like we saw in the Jai Herbert fight where he's throwing that right hand, then he doesn't bring his hands back. He throws that big left hook. He's there to be countered and exposed, and maybe Volkanovski could come in there, clip him with a shot, and potentially, you know, change the fight, either hurting Topuria or being able to do that more and more often. But I don't necessarily feel like Alex has the power or the boxing timing or the ability to throw head kicks to really kind of make that a big deal. And even if he does counter Ilia, I think Ilia is willing and able to take a shot, keep coming forward, and give his own. And as far as the grappling goes, Ilia is a super high-level grappler. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He has good Greco-Roman wrestling, I believe. And I think that he's probably going to be able to defend the majority of the takedowns. And if he gets on top, I think he could have a lot of success versus Volkanovski. So I think Ilia has a lot of advantages here outside of just the youth. I think stylistically, he has good ability to cut the cage off. He's not going to let Volkanovski just skate around him and leg kick him. And I think with his low stance, with his ability to pull counter on the combinations, good job slipping the jab, I think that he's going to give Volkanovski a lot of issues. So that's definitely going to be the hardest matchup, I think, for Volkanovski to get through of the guys up there at 135 currently. But he just needs to kind of try to use that strong jab, set up his hands with his low kicks, and then kind of try to set up the grappling exchanges. And I think if he could do that, he could have success. But Ilia is going to be looking to pressure him, get in his face, throw better boxing combinations, throw uppercuts, throw strikes up the middle. And I think he could have a lot of success. He just can't get tired by allowing Volkanovski to push him against the cage, hold him there. He can't let Volkanovski get on top of him and slow down in the later rounds. And if Volkanovski has success with the leg kicks, I haven't really seen Ilia fight from southpaw stance that much, so that could potentially, be a factor. But I feel like Ilia proved a lot of things in his last fight. He proved he can go 5 rounds. He proved he was willing to go forward, go in the pocket with one of the heaviest, hardest hitters in Josh Emmett, easily outboxed Josh Emmett, who I think has similar boxing style to Volkanovski, a lot of overhands and things like that. Volkanovski has more weapons, and he's definitely smarter, but I think that they're kind of similar in their attacks boxing-wise. And Ilia, I just think, is going to eat him up with the longer combinations, with the pullback counters. I think he's going to be able to pressure Volkanovski and not have as big of a risk as he has in other fights of being knocked out. I don't think Volkanovski really brings that crazy power. And if Ilia could shut down the wrestling and the clinch of Volkanovski, I think he's going to be able to distance too. So I'm going with Ilia Topuria, and my official prediction for this fight is going to be Ilia Topuria to win via 3rd round KO TKO. So there you have it, guys. That's the full card breakdown and predictions for UFC 298. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hit that like button. Hit subscribe if you're not subscribed. Let's try to get over 400, 500, 600, 1,000 likes on this video. Everyone that's listening to this video, hit the like button. Would really appreciate that. It helps the algorithm a lot, and it's very easy and free for you guys. So if you can hit that like button, I would really appreciate it. And outside of that, go to patreon.com/AimPredictionGuru for all the bets that I have this week. We've been killing it on the bets this year, man. We've been winning every single week. We've had profits. So looking to continue that streak going on to now. And hopefully we can keep it going for the rest of the year. So go to patreon.com/AimPredictionGuru. Help support the channel. Make yourself some money. And as far as the parlay of the week goes, the most confident pick. For the most confident pick, I guess I'll go with Rinya Nakamura. And for the parlay of the week, I'm going to say to go with Oban, Elliott, and Garry. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll talk to you guys soon.